Well, it's the Morning Brew, and we're having fun already. It's a great pleasure to welcome to our table today our first guest, and it's good to see her again. She's a former state senator representing the North Valley, is that right?
Right.
For many years. Dede Feldman is here. She is now a published author, everybody, and her new book is called Boots, Suits, and Citizens,
All right.
and we're happy to have you, Dede.
Oh,
Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much.
Well, what prompted you to write a book?
Well, I learned a lot as a New Mexico state senator for 16 years, and I wanted to share some of that knowledge about how the system works, how it doesn't work sometimes, who the major players are, and what are some lessons for legislators and citizens.
Is it a kiss and tell book?
It's not really a kiss and tell
I'm kidding
book.
you, by the way. I'm kidding you.
But there are a lot of stories in here that you would not know unless you were
really?
inside the New Mexico Senate. I've tried to be very fair and even-handed about my handling of these guys and gals, but it's all public record, and this is documented very meticulously with newspaper articles, and you know, people say the damnedest things, right?
That's what they do.
Yeah, and so this has some of that information in there, but you know, it's fair game.
We have a very unique political climate here in New Mexico.
We do, and I think that, you know, the cover of the book actually shows, you know, cue the mariachis. We have baile folklorico on the floor of the Senate and the House almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun, a lot of typical New Mexico things that go on there. It's a showcase for our culture in many ways. So.
But then there's the business of getting bills through and navigating through this extraordinarily complicated process.
Yes, it can be a minefield. It can be a minefield, but it is also remarkably open and accessible to citizens here in New Mexico. I think much more so than other legislatures. And if you know the system, and if you have a good story, and if you persevere and kind of map the relationships between legislators, you can get things done. And there are a couple of stories in here about advocates that, you know, against all expectations, were able to ban the death penalty in New Mexico, or able to pass a bill for medical marijuana, or even get cockfighting banned.
Yes.
It was incredibly quite a struggle. That
was amazing that was a debate at all, but it did. It took a long time to get that passed.
20 years. 20 years. And there's a story here about Senator Mary Jane Garcia from a small town in southern New Mexico who really bucked all of the conventional wisdom and endured death threats and all kinds of abuse in trying to do that.
It's extraordinary. And you have a very critically acclaimed book, and it says that it really shines the light on the inner workings of our government and our system here in New Mexico. And you've had a lot of success for campaign finance reform, for healthcare reform, for a number of other wonderful, incredible bills that have passed because of your hard work and your efforts.
Well, thank you, thank you. It does take a long time, however, and this is sort of a roadmap as to how others can do that. I was elected as a reformer, and so I pledged that I was going to try to push for reform every year in terms of trying to get an ethics commission, trying to get money out of politics as much as possible, and trying to get, you know, more accessible and affordable health care for New Mexicans. But it's a long slog, and, you know, there are special interests there at every pass to guard the way, you know.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about, we've had a lot of sudden retirements from both the House and the Senate. I guess there's some from the Senate. I don't know. I'm aware of some.
Not this year, but last year there were lots.
There were a few. We've had, what, 11 so far this year, and maybe a couple more to come. What do you think that is a signal of? or does it mean anything?
I think it's a good thing. You know, I think it's a good thing. We need fresh blood, and we don't need to be frozen in place. You know, New Mexico is a state where we do not have term limits. And so people tend to get in there and stay in there for decades.
Yes.
And that can be very detrimental, you know, to change, because things change. But folks that have been in there for a long time get entrenched in their committees or entrenched in their leadership positions. And it makes it very difficult to, you know, form different coalitions and move things forward on a bipartisan basis. So I'm happy that that's happening, and hopefully, you know, the legislature can come into the modern age where we're sort of bound by the 1912 Constitution that calls for a very short session, an unpaid legislature, and this was set up at a time when, you know, New Mexico was a rural area, and you know, this was the winter months, which was sort of the downtime for farming and ranching.
Right.
And so this is the only time the legislature meets, and it's one of the shortest times in the country. We're the only unpaid legislature in the country, and that has implications. You know, that has implications for conflict of interest, how powerful lobbyists are in Santa Fe, and how you know, kind of the bind that citizens are in.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear more about your book, of course, and the Boots, Suits, and Citizens. Can you tell us who are the Boots, Suits, and Citizens?
Yes, actually, that was supposed to be the title of the book, but it's probably more descriptive to say inside the New Mexico Senate. But the major players there are the Boots, the Suits, and the Citizens. As I call them, the Boots are the rural interests. And in many ways, as I was just saying, we're still a rurally controlled legislature where you see the cockfighters, for example, where you see the rural interests come out on any water issues or any acequia issues, both from the north and the south. And then the Suits I refer to here are, of course, the lobbyists. And there are about 6 or 7 lobbyists to every one New Mexico legislator. And they wield an incredible amount of power in Santa Fe.
And they know it, too.
They know it. But they would have you believe that this is all one big happy family.
Yes, right.
And in many ways, it is a big happy family, because some of those lobbyists are actually related to legislators. Or many of them are former legislators who then just go on to become lobbyists. So it's kind of an insider's game in that way, unless you understand the system and kind of can break through that. And this book kind of traces the money and connects the dots between the lobbyists and the contributions and the policy outcomes for New Mexicans. And the citizens, of course, refer not just to the advocates, the people that come up there, you know, hoping to get their program funded or to get their cause furthered, but also to the legislators themselves, who are citizens, who really are everyday people. And this is a story about some of those everyday people.
Now, are you going to do some book signings? And where are we going to have those?
Yes, well, next week I've got a couple of events. I'm going to speak before the New Mexico Press Women's Association on Monday at the MCM Elegante. They're doing a lunch. And then later in the week, Thursday night, I'm going to appear at the Jewish Community Center with an advocate for a number of different good government causes, I would say, Fred Nathan from Think New Mexico. And the title of our presentation is Reform and Resistance, which was another possible subtitle for this book. But Freddie is a reformer also. And his think tank, called Think New Mexico, has been responsible for a number of reforms in the system here in New
they have been.
Mexico. So we're going to get together and talk over there.
I like this career move for you. You have another book inside you somewhere?
I think I do.
Hey, good. See?
I think I do.
There you go. Hey, Dede, it's wonderful to see you. Congrats on this. Thank you for your service to the state for all
thank
these
you, Larry.
years.
You
And
too. You too.
Congrats on being a published author now. This is
Wow,
wonderful.
it's really, and thanks to UNM Press, who
Great
did
people
it.
over
Yeah,
there.
they're terrific over there.
This should be a must-read for every high school student, every college
Yeah,
student,
great civics
every
lesson.
citizen of New Mexico.
There you go.
Well, thanks. I think it's important too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Former State Senator Dede Feldman, author of the book Inside the New Mexico State Senate, Boots, Suits, and Citizens. Dede, our guest today. Amber and I will be right back with more on the Morning Brew in just a moment.